Assalamualaikum and good day to Prof. Muhammad Nizal and everyone. We are from Group 3 of AC220B7J would like to present the issue on Audit Committee during the COVID-19 pandemic. Before we begin, I would like to introduce our team members. Firstly, we have Ahmad Irshad, Muhammad Shafiq, Nik Ahmad Amar, Nur Izzati Ismahani and lastly myself, Sufika Anis. Now, I will pass to the first presenter.
Assalamualaikum to Prof. Muhammad Nizal. My name is Nur Izzati Ismahani and I will be presenting the introduction on our topic, which is the Audit Committee. The Audit Committee is vital in an organization and plays huge roles in providing oversight over the organization's audit and other areas involving financial management. The group assisting the board fulfills its fiduciary responsibilities in overseeing the organization's finances. The roles of Audit Committee become more challenging, especially during the early heat of pandemic COVID-19 in Malaysia. This has caused the Audit Committee to become more aware regarding the unexpected risks that might happen in the future. Now, let's take a look at the roles of Audit Committee. The first role of Audit Committee is to provide oversight of the financial reporting process. In order to comprehend the possible impact on financial statements, the Audit Committee should anticipate important accounting and reporting concerns, as well as current professional and regulatory declarations. It is vital to understand on how management creates internal interim financial information to determine if reports are thorough and reliable. Because the Audit Committee is in charge of supervising the whole financial reporting process, they should be aware of the procedures and controls put in place by management and understand whether those processes and controls are planned and functioning properly. Besides that, the Audit Committee has a role in reviewing the audit process. Audit Committee meets separately with external auditors to discuss matters that the committee believes should be discussed privately. The committee also reviews proposed audit approach and handles coordination of the audit effort with internal audit staff. When an internal audit function exists, the committee will review and approve the audit plan, review staffing and organization of the function, and meet with internal auditors and management on a periodic basis to discuss matters of concern that may arise. Next is to review the company's system of internal controls. Effective audit committees exercise oversight by requesting relevant, timely, and accurate information from management, the internal auditor, and the external auditor, as well as by asking direct and difficult questions. The committee must assess the overall effectiveness of the internal control system. An effective internal control system provides reasonable assurance that an organization's policies, processes, tasks, behavior, and other aspects, when combined, facilitate its effective and efficient operation, help to ensure the quality of internal and external reporting, and assist in compliance with applicable laws and regulations. The Audit Committee should be satisfied that appropriate control policies, procedures, and activities have been developed and are functioning properly. Lastly is providing oversight on the company compliance with law and regulation. To guarantee compliance with laws and regulations, the Audit Committee must work with the management team, independent auditor, and internal auditors to oversee the selection of accounting rules and principles. The committees must extensively analyze the organization's rules, particularly those pertaining to ethics, conflict of interest, and fraud, as well as the organization's litigation and regulatory processes. I think that's all from my part. Thank you, and now I pass to Sufika to explain on the next presentation.
Thank you, Nur Izzati. Now, I would like to discuss on the impact on the roles of Audit Committee after COVID-19. In response to COVID-19, Audit Committees have to reassess the scope of their workload, agendas, and risk oversight responsibilities. This means that Audit Committees will have plenty on their plates to provide critical oversight of financial reporting in the COVID-19 pandemic environment. And at the same time, Audit Committees would need to keep working on their other key duties in areas such as risk management, internal and external audit management, and ethics and compliance. Furthermore, it is important for the Audit Committee to continue to focus on the culture of the organization and their role in deterring fraud. Some companies may see a reduction of ethics and compliance related matters as more employees are working from home and practicing social distancing. However, employees at other companies, especially in essential businesses, may have concerns about their safety. Similarly, as companies begin to emerge from working virtually and workplace reopen, individuals may have differences in opinion regarding their personal safety in the workplace or about traveling for business. These matters might cause a spike in ethics-related complaints. Hence, this had impacted the roles of audit committee whereby, in a forum hosted by KPMG, they explored the specific implications for audit committees and their stakeholders arising from COVID-19. And it was stressed that the fundamentals of good governance and effective oversight arrangements are the most important during this COVID-19 crisis due to the rapidly changing risk landscape. Next, due to the pandemic of COVID-19, audit committees need to change their working methods in order to operate and accomplish their tasks without physically meeting. Audit committees are adapting their way of working in order to better fulfill their responsibilities. This means using virtual meetings and other online communication platforms, especially with the board, management, internal and external auditors. This is because audit committees rely on actionable and timely information and analysis to perform their oversight role effectively. Otherwise, they will have to perform their duties based on guesswork without having a guide. Therefore, management needs to provide more frequent updates about the crisis in order to keep everyone up to date. Considering COVID-19's complex financial reporting issues and the need for swift decisions on financial matters, the boards are more engaged in matters discussed by the audit committee. Hence, the audit committee needs to adapt quickly in conducting meetings through virtual platform. However, in a survey report conducted by the KPMG Audit Committee Institute, the vast majority of those surveyed reported that the remote work environment required by COVID-19 has had no noticeable impact on the efficiency and effectiveness of their interactions with management and auditors. The other impact that I would like to discuss is audit committees have to maintain their focus on the control implications of COVID-19. As COVID-19 disrupted business operations, companies are reassessing, improving, or adopting new internal controls. One of the common disruptions that requires a closer look at internal controls is cybersecurity. This is due to the increase in cyber risk as employees are working virtually. It is to the extent that the audit committees had to involve in cyber risk oversight, where such cyber risk may affect financial reporting and internal control over financial reporting. Thus, it is important for audit committees to understand the additional risks and steps taken to address them, including through the use of effective user access controls. Next, I will pass to the next presenter. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Muhammad Shafi bin Anwar. Okay, we shall continue the presentation with the internal audit oversight. So there are 4 points that can be discussed in internal audit oversight, which is firstly is review the audit plan. So the internal audit should determine which project might be cancelled, postponed, or accelerate in this new environment after the pandemic. As the pandemic has blocked every job to be conducted, this will affect the internal audit function to be able to adapt with the new environment. The improvement in auditing is crucial as everything can be done online during the pandemic and any changes need to be made with the response to the COVID-19 also. By reviewing the audit planning, the company's goal and objective can be achieved after the pandemic hit us. Okay, for the second point is the completeness of risk identification. This can be identified when there is the need to do more frequent assessment risks in order to allocate the risk. As the environment is rapidly changing, the communication between management and the audit committee is important. The longer the audit takes, the higher the risk and the new risk will appear. Then the change of working practice and protocols along with the personal and organizational financial pressure is able to create fraud in auditing. The auditors should be aware of the possibility of fraud or error with the skepticism top of the mind when performing audit procedures. Okay, for the third point is about the control environment for the risk identified. This part is required as the internal auditor need to provide assurance to the management or the audit committee regarding the control environment in addressing any new risks. Even when auditors are not required to test the control, they must know how to implement it or to be an expert in understanding the design of the control. For example, a particular testing or other procedure related to any changes to the financial close process, change in supply chain, or any change in IT technology securities. Okay, for the last point is about new regulatory requirements related to the economic assistance received. The internal auditor also must comply with any new regulatory requirements received under CARES Act and other government assistance program. Government programs are able to increase the risk of non-compliance. They have provided funds to the many companies as they need to sustain during the pandemic. This is to ensure the company personnel should be added to the disclosure control and procedure process in the future.
Assalamualaikum, my name is Ni'amah Amar, and now we will continue with external audit oversight. During COVID-19 pandemic, audit committee's responsibility for oversight of the external auditor has not changed. The first external audit oversight is the significant audit risk on the current condition. The pandemic outbreak of COVID-19 caused the external auditor's perspective regarding potential changes in audit risk. Working remotely of workers has impacted the external auditor to execute its interim review. There are risks in external auditor's annual plan should be updated to address new risks. For example, the risk of maintaining confidentiality with teams working remotely from home. Confidential information is often sent using email to auditors that work unsupervised at home. Next, impact on audit estimate. Audit committee should consider on what impact will cause to audit estimates. COVID-19 pandemic has added complexity and challenges when auditing accounting estimates. The changing circumstances and uncertainty also give the selection and application of the method become more challenging. One of the key considerations for the auditors in accounting estimates is focus on all accounting estimates, even when in prior periods, for example, how debts are recoverable when there is stable history of collecting debts. Next, objectives and independence of external auditor. Audit committee should oversee the objectives and independence of external auditor. In the COVID-19 pandemic environment, it has affected the independence of auditor in many aspects, such as the documentation of the professional judgments. This include the basis for the auditor's conclusion on the reasonableness of areas of subject judgment. Auditors most likely to encounter challenges with their audits with the current environment, which some challenges may be faced for the first time. Auditors should be advised to further mindful as to documentation requirements under ISA 230 audit documentation. Lastly, perspective on materiality. The external auditor's perspective on materiality changed due to management's revised projection. Previous benchmarks used for determining materiality may not be appropriate because there are changes in operations and revenues impacted from pre-COVID to post-COVID. If a change in benchmark results in a higher materiality, it should consider whether that is appropriate during this economic downturn, and therefore determining materiality requires professional judgment, and it is important that the rationale is well documented.
My name is Ahmad Ishak bin Razali. Next is regarding on how the audit committee managed the risk post-COVID-19 pandemic. So due to the heat of the COVID-19 pandemic, he has been opened up to more risks, which has caused the risk landscape to be more volatile. As for that, how the audit committee can manage the risk to ensure the company or the organizations will be in operation efficiently and effectively. So one of the ways is by taking a robust approach to risk management in order to identify and manage any emerging risks. Before the pandemic hits the whole world, it is found that only 40% of boards surveyed whether their company's enterprise risk management, or well known as ERM, was effective in managing the risk. With the COVID-19 pandemic outbreak that has widened up the risk landscape, audit committees will need to assess whether the organization's ERM program and risk assessment are being updated to the latest trends in response to the changes in the operating environment. This means that the organization should have access to more reliable sources to monitor any macroeconomic changes and regulatory developments that may have impacts on the reporting. Furthermore, due to the pandemic, audit plans will need to be adjusted to address changes in the risk profile and risk appetite, which has been identified in the ERM of the organization. For example, internal audit's risk coverage may be reduced due to the travel restrictions. As for that, audit committee should determine whether the frequency and validation process of key controls can materially give impacts on the effectiveness of the overall control environment. Next, shift in mindset of the audit committee towards the risk management is a must in determining whether the organization can manage the emerging risks more effectively. So this means that elements regarding risk management should be discussed more frequently in every audit committee and board meeting. So audit committee should spend sufficient and adequate time in assessing the risk, whether it may materialize to the organization. Besides that, audit committee also should always aware of the risk developments, as due to the pandemic, the risk can materialize at speed. So this is because the organization was not only exposed to risk caused by the pandemic, but also climate change and international conflicts that also can cause severe damage to the company. So therefore, the organization should assess whether the risk can affect the organization materially. Lastly, audit committee should no longer think that risk mainly in terms of shareholders' value. This risk must be mitigated to benefit all the stakeholders, as they can create long-term value to the organization. In conclusion, COVID-19 pandemic has affected most of the entity of the organizations, including audit committee. In order to ensure that the organization operates effectively and efficiently, audit committee need to focus more on risk management in order to provide critical oversight of financial reporting, including risk oversight, external oversight, and internal oversight. Hence, any risk that might appear, not only risk that caused by the pandemic, can also be avoided.